Hi, Tony and I want to welcome you to our study in the parables. It's good to have Tony back. And today we're going to look at what is probably one of the most difficult parables to understand. I've been reading a book by Klein Snodgrass. He has written an almost 800-page book on the parables, and it is recognized as one of the best. In that chapter on this parable, he lists 16 different interpretations of it. And one of mine in the past would have been one of those also. But I'm going to go with his thoughts because I think they're really right on and very, very helpful. So imagine a gathering of people. They've been following Jesus. They're in a circle. Jesus turns to them, starts off with the parable.
Jesus said, "There was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this manager was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, 'What is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer.' Then the manager said to himself, 'What will I do, now that my master is taking the position away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I have decided what to do, so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes.' So summoning up his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?'
And he answered, 100 jugs of oil.
The servant said to him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. Then he asked another, 'How much do you owe?'
And he replied, 100 containers of wheat.
Then he said to him, 'Take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes.'"
And that's Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 9. I think the best way for us to approach this is to kind of do a question and answer on it. So Tony's going to ask the questions. I'm going to try to give the answers.
Just how much did the manager owe the owner?
So the amount of oil was between 800 and 900 gallons, and it would occupy about 150 olive trees, quite expensive. The wheat was equivalent to 7.5 years of labor.
In verse 8, the master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. Is God identified with the master in this parable? If so, is God okay with what the manager did?
No. God never applauds dishonesty. In fact, Jesus put it like this, let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one. Matthew chapter 5, verse 37.
If God is not the master in this parable, what does the parable teach?
Okay, the real key is the second part of verse 8 and 9. Let's look at verse 8. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. You have two categories here, the children of this age and the children of the light. The dishonest manager belonged to this age. And so he was wise, he was shrewd, he was quick thinking in the kind of dog-eat-dog world of business. However, people like Tony and me, people listening to this, people who are following Jesus, we have left this age and we now belong to the children of light. And so shouldn't God's children have wisdom, quick thinking in relation to God's kingdom and his work? Shouldn't we be like that?
Why then did Jesus say that the children of this age are more shrewd than the children of light?
Right. Well, the children of this age, think about your own life. I thought about this for myself. We have one eye on the kingdom. We have one eye on the world. We're divided. And tragically, too often, the world system wins in our lives, and we assume their values rather than living out the values of the kingdom. That's why John wrote, 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 and 16, do not love the world or the things in the world. The love of the Father is not in those who love the world, for all that's in the world, the desire of the flesh, the desire of the eyes, the pride of riches, comes not from the Father, but from the world.
How does verse 9 relate to this parable? And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes.
Wise children of the light use their wealth according to the principles of God's kingdom. Verse 11 gives us an insight. It says in verse 11, if you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust to you true riches? Now, in our translation, we have the word wealth. In the original language, it was the word mammon. Interesting, I learned this from Dr. Snodgrass, and first time in all my life. Mammon is a derivative of the word amen. And mammon literally means that in which one places trust. So, children of the light choose to trust God more than how much money they have in the bank. And they use their money to benefit people and the purposes of God. And the result is a warm welcome when you get to heaven. And then verse 13, no slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. And remember, that word wealth is really that word mammon. So wealth or mammon has the potential to be dishonest because it can lead us away from following God, and we devote ourselves and we trust ourselves in our bank account, our possessions, what we've stored up, more so than we trust God. Years ago, I heard a preacher say, show me a person's financial resources, show me their bank statement, and I will show you their spiritual life. Count it up. Where do we put our emphasis? Is it on giving or is it on having?
How would you summarize the teaching of this parable?
Right. Well, Jesus advised his followers, we are the children of the light, to use our money in wisdom and quick thinking. Sometimes we have to make quick decisions on releasing our money into the hands of God. Sometimes we have to be wise in how we would handle what God has put in our hands. We are to use it to serve his kingdom. And then when the present age is over, by the way, we're not going to need money in the next age. When the present age is over, then we have a reception in heaven that we'll be happy to have. Now, Jesus told this parable, as he told all of his parables, to get us to do something. If you look closely at verses 3, 4, 8, and 9, doing is the key thing. We're supposed to do something. So let's ask a couple of questions of ourselves to think about how we're doing with the message of the parable. Am I aware on a regular basis that I'm one of the children of light and I live in God's kingdom? Is that something real to me?
Does being a member of God's kingdom affect what I do with money and possessions?
And do I use my possessions in God's kingdom? Can I think quickly? Can I use the wisdom God's given me and make it part of God's kingdom? Thanks so much for being a part of our study today. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We have another challenging parable for tomorrow. Have a great day. God bless you.